Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with a Frontier match with a special guest with Tasty. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Tasty.
Hey there, guys. How's it going? TastySnackies here. And yeah, I'm a brand new YouTuber. Just started doing this whole thing about 6, 7 months ago and having a lot of fun with it. And I met you, Kevin, through the Amino apps and through our Brewers Challenge. And we've been building decks and stuff and having a whole lot of fun. And I figured, you know what? Let's play some Frontier together.
Yeah, so we have my go-to Frontier deck, which is the Pyromancer's Goggles. And I guess we'll just, how do you want to do this? Just want to commentate on each other's side, and I guess we'll just cut the chatter here, and Tasty will record his version of the game, and then I'll record my version of the game, and you can go mix and match them. So you can go look at his, plays and commentary, and on his end for what his decisions are, and on my channel we can look at my plays.
So, which deck is yours that you're playing again?
This is Pyromancer's Goggles.
Pyromancer's Goggles, right? And I'm playing a blue-green Crush variant. It's I actually call it Crush of Tides instead of Crush of Tentacles. And the reason why is because it utilizes Rise from the Tides from Shadows over Innistrad. And instead of going the Part the Water Veil route, we're kind of going slower and more grindier, and then we're going to try and go wide with stuff like Rise from the Tides.
Alrighty, so this is definitely not a keepable hand. Can't keep a one drop. One drop is terrible, especially coming into play tapped. We do know the deck. Like, this is just such a bad hand against what I call a Drago blue deck. This is actually a weak matchup for the Goggles deck. I thought I'd just show my go-to deck, but this is not a matchup you want to see, so I'll ship it back. This is okay. This is something, two dead Wild Slashes. They are something we can buy back quite easy with the Soulfire Grandmaster. It's keepable, and we do have the land on top that we'll find all of the sources that we need. And so this is going to be just a first turn Inspiring Vantage into a Soulfire. I'm going second, right? I always hate MT Joe. Sometimes I forget the... oh, I think he passed his draw step. So let's see if I think he might have just F6 the turn so I get a free turn here. MT Joe is tough. So I'll go Inspiring Vantage and then pass the turn. I guess he gave me a free mole. So anywho, that's something on MT Joe that you do need to be aware of. Sometimes it can be quite difficult, especially since we had such a lot of time in between setting up this game. So the Soulfire Grandmaster is going to be the go-to drop here. We won't go Bloodstained Mire because I would like to get a dual land for a red source and a black source, even though we don't really utilize the black source too much. But the Soulfire Grandmaster is going to be something that at least can apply some pressure, but that is the overstatement of the year because it's not going to be enough. What we have to really rely on is getting a Goggles situated and then go for a big one-turn swing with some copy, like the Crater's Claw would be the best thing. Even Incendiary Flows that are copied would be very, very good. And we can even buy him back too. That's the good thing about this deck is it can play the really grindy matchup, but it's not the greatest at doing so. So I think here we can actually just go get a red source and the Smoldering Marsh can come into play. Untapped on the following turn. And we'll still instant speed it. I think buying back an Incendiary Flow. Nah, I think we just Incendiary Flow right now. Since I know what I'm playing against. He could surprise me with creatures that this is useful. We could just bait out a negate. Nope, just anticipate. So I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of engulf the shore type cards, just a lot of stall. So that's the advantage that we do have is direct damage to the face. That's one of the thing that sets us aside from like a hardened scales deck that's trying to attack in with creatures, or even like a green-white tokens, or they can be shut down with fog effects, or just like getting rid of the creatures. We have very, very, very few creatures. Just the rabble, the Soulfire Grandmaster, and the Goblin Dark Dwellers. So now he has given me, there is the Jada offshoot, so I definitely not okay with that. We'll end up double wild slashing it. Or just maybe even single wild slashing it. So here I just will go get a basic, because this will allow the Smoldering Marsh to come into play untapped. Now we can Crackling Doom it. I'm going to give him the option to block here because we have double Wild Slash. And I'm not sure if there's anything else worthwhile for Crackling Doom. So he's deciding whether to absorb this damage, make me use another burn spell on the offshoot. And so we'll go ahead and slash it. And then keep back just like a Kolaghan's Command. Kolaghan's Command can be used to bring back a Soulfire Grandmaster, but in a blue-green deck, you gotta assume that this is not going to be going to the grave, or it's going to be bounced. So we're definitely on some sort of clock. The Lumbering Falls can be hooked up to the, if he is playing the Part the Water Veil. I know he has told me a little bit about his deck being Rise from the Tides, so we will bring in a hate card that if we get it situated. So it was a good idea to kill the offshoot. We're going to have to start worrying about the take extra turns. It's getting in range. So I probably don't want to use a Crackling Doom. It's good against the big creatures. So let's go ahead and attack in with the Soulfire Grandmaster. So Crush of Tentacles, Crackling Doom is great against. And we will pass the turn. Do want to hit one more land drop for the Goblin Dark Dwellers. It can rip out key cards with Kolaghan's Command later on. But our opponent is up to 7 mana. And with 7 mana, that is getting the take extra turn. A Green Warden. So would I rather, we'll Crackling Doom this. Gonna get back the offshoot. But he'll be able to get back like an Explosive Vegetation as well. Which is pretty insane value. We did get the damage in with the Crackling Doom. And there's the Explosive Vegetation. And I'll play the offshoot, which will require an answer. So, not quite sure I want to tap out here. I don't think I want to go Nahiri either, because the Explosive Vegetation is... Yeah, this would require 2 cards to get rid of the offshoot, and I don't think it's worth it. I think what we're going to do is just Nahiri, which could be disastrous with the Lumbering Falls, but we'll just get rid of the Wild Slash and try to hit a land drop. And we do hit a land drop, so that's perfect. We need to find the Pyromancer's Goggles, but with our opponent up to a ton of lands, he's going to gain 4 life this turn, go back up to 14. The Lumbering Falls could be activated and attacking Nahiri. That is a real possibility. And the Crackling Doom was one way to get rid of the Lumbering Falls. And so Nissa's renewal, that is 7 life. It's going to actually be 10 life off the offshoot. Might make Explosive Vegetation. Yeah, there still should be enough relevant, I would assume, relevant lands to grab. So that resetted the life total. Now there's a Battlefield Forge. So at this point, we will get rid of the Battlefield Forge and try to hit another Wild Slash. Could go for a Crackling Doom. I could go Colgan's Command and Wild Slash to kill the offshoot. Doesn't seem very good. I think at this point, I would like to try to protect. We can start buying back Wild Slashes. I could Crackling Doom. It probably is Crackling Doom, which is the right play. Or Incendiary Flow gets rid of the offshoot forever. But I think it's more relevant for just Crackling Doom doing damage. And that way our opponent's back down to a 16. And we have a blocker. But the taking extra turns is very relevant here. Even if we're at a healthy 38, it's just a few swings away if the counters get put on the Lumbering Falls, or just even animating another land. So piece of the puzzle. Let's see what the revealed cards are. Finds just only Void Shatter. That's it. So misses pretty hard. We do know it's Sphinx of the Final Word. So Crackling Doom is going to be very good in this particular matchup. But the piece is just completely completely misses. Doesn't find any. Oh, it did find another piece. Yeah, I did find another piece of the puzzle. This one finds a Reality Shift and a Crush of Tentacles. And the Crush can be cast this turn if he had a land. Doesn't look like it. He's probably going to have to shift the Goblin Dark Dwellers. So I have another another Soulfire Grandmaster, which absolutely is going to get discarded. I think it's going to be Soulfire Grandmaster that gets discarded. We find a Lightning Strike here. The Lumbering Falls cannot be activated, actually. Could have gone for another Dark Dwellers with Nahiri. This gives me a Soulfire Grandmaster. Rally Shift on the Soulfire Grandmaster. Yeah, that exiles it and Manifest. Alright, so let's see what the Manifest card was. A Crackling Doom. So there's one of the kind of win conditions with the repeating Soulfire Grandmasters. We actually had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage on board. We have a blocker with our Manifest card, which is relevant. And Anticipate. Both the Anticipate though is an enabler for the Crush. We do know that Crush is in our opponent's hand. That seemed like a pretty quick decision to find. The Rise of the Tides is the win con. I'm going to Lightning Strike and Wild Slash for sure, end of turn. So there's the Rise from the Tide, which creates 9 zombies. But they come into play tapped. And so I think I'm going for it here. I assume like a negate needs to happen, or the... We'll spend our mana. So Kolgan's Command, return and do 2 damage, I would assume. I don't think I care too much about a card in hand. There's probably a lot of not relevant targets. And that one does get Void Shattered. But we tack in for 6. This might be lethal. Find other Goblin Dark Dwellers, so we're going to definitely search. And we should still have another Goblin Dark Dwellers in our deck. We can actually get a Pyromancer's Goggles, but I think the Goblin Dark Dwellers is the better card here, because this allows for an Incendiary Flow. To the face. And then we'll attack in. Which our opponent could have ways to untap all the zombies. But nope. There's nothing. So the burn to the face gets the job done. Needed a way to take an extra turn to then untap all the zombies. The relevant cards in this one, Authority Console is probably not a good play. The Incendiary Flow is just better. It can take care of the offshoot. Hallowed Moonlight can actually take care of the... Yeah, Hallowed Moonlight's actually good here because it does affect tokens. And that is one of the win cons. So we're going to bring in, I think, even Anguish of Making. Does it hit enough cards? I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what is included in the list. Collective Defiance is probably one of those cards that does a lot more than just the Wild Slash. Sometimes I like to keep in one Wild Slash because it's something that it's a renewable resource. So far, Grandmaster, even though it worked in this particular match, ends up being a card that could easily be cut. But is there less relevant things? This is where we want the Pyromancer's Goggles. I actually think that so far Grandmaster can go to a 2 of. Incendiary Flow can go to a 1 of. And this still gives us enough targets to really utilize the Pyromancer's Goggles. Yeah, I actually don't think that so far Grandmaster is the right call in this particular matchup. I think we can easily cut it. So I'm going to submit it and call this good. We need to hit a big Commune with Lava. And I definitely won't just burn Incendiary Flow against my opponent this time around, knowing that the offshoot is in the deck. So the other cards, Pulse, I'm sure like Pulse of Marasa could be in the list to gain 6 life. A lot of those effectively counter my spells. So there could be the argument that I need to keep Soulfire in. I will keep a Nahiri hand just because Nahiri is powerful. A double Nahiri hand is weird. I can definitely just ship the Nahiri back. So I'll keep this hand. It might not be quick enough, but is this less quick than most hands? We can find the Pyromancer's Goggles. I think I'll be fighting through a lot more negates, and those particular cards. Smoldering Marsh just comes and play tapped here. If it puts out an offshoot, I will strike that down as quickly as possible. And there it is. And there's a Lumbering Falls to gain a life, so it's already got advantage. And put an Inspiring Vantage, and I will just strike down the offshoot. So that absorbed 4 damage. Another offshoot. It gives me a strike target again. And we're getting all our comes into play tap lands, so I'm going to do this right now, see if there's a negate for it. I doubt you'd keep this particular card alive at this point. Just let it go. But if we can bait out a negate, that's huge, because then we'll have the Nahiri. Nahiri's a little bit vulnerable to the Lumbering Falls. This is Explosive Vegetation. Turn to shine here. Commune with Lava is going to be very good. And if there's another negate or Void Shatter, it's a card that my opponent is using to stop a card, though, so I'm okay with that. So I think Battlefield Forge is okay to get rid of here. And there is a Wooded Foothills. And the more lands the merrier with the commune. So it's going to be instant speed, natural connection, which is really good in a blue-green deck as it ramps up a turn. I would not be surprised about an activation of Lumbering Falls into Nahiri. Nahiri doesn't have... I could put in some sort of finisher as far as like a card like Emrakul or Ulamog in the sideboard for a big payout for Nahiri. There's probably even some good payouts in like black, red, or white that Nahiri could go grab. But I'm not too concerned with the finishers as far as Nahiri. Nahiri's just going to go get a Goggles eventually. So this is giving me an opening too. So Collective Defiance, I can actually kill the offshoot. And I still think we get rid of a Battlefield Forge. I could actually get rid of my entire hand here, but I want the commune. We'll go ahead and grab... Yeah, we'll get rid of the Battlefield Forge here. And there's an Incendiary Flow. Against a Collective... No, it's just going to be Collective Defiance. With 2 modes. So 4 damage and 3. So we'll go here and here. Might as well. And we can crack the Wooded Foothills at the end of turn. Again, would not be surprised for another activation of the Lumbering Falls. It is buying me a lot of time. Nahiri is absorbing a ton of damage, so our opponent is still trying to... It is a damage-based deck. It is still trying to win via tokens, via the zombie tokens. Even the Virulent Plague does great against the Crush token as well. So we'll keep that in mind. And our opponent did use a Negate and 2 Jade Offshoots just to kind of stop what we're trying to do. So sometimes that's not the more ideal, and activating mana to attack into Nahiri. So he's very afraid of Nahiri, even though Nahiri is not very relevant for this deck. So I might actually just hit, if I don't hit a land drop here. Okay, so the land drop makes things different as... No, I think I just go out on a commune, so I shouldn't have actually played that land drop necessarily. We're going to get rid of Incendiary Flow. And that's a terrible card. We will grab the Smoldering Marsh, and this will go... I think this is a good time just to cast this. It gives us an entire turn. This effectively was just draw 4. And I'd rather wait than on his turn, because I don't think there's going to be a Dispel. And we'll have a land drop for next turn to use. So Kolaghan's Command is very relevant. It will get rid of a card. Goblin Dark Dweller is something that more than likely will be the play next turn, because it will get back just a Lightning Strike or an Incendiary Flow. And so we will pass the turn. My opponent still has the tough decision whether or not to attack in a Nahiri. Unless there's nothing relevant in my opponent's hand, it's probably been the wrong place to be attacking in Nahiri. I think it has to focus on doing what his deck does best. Howled Moonlight's kind of unfortunate it's not in our hand. It can cantrip a card for sure. He's going to leave back. So we'll run the Inspiring Vantage out. And plus the Nahiri. Get rid of Inspiring Vantage. There's a Crackling Doom. So Goblin Dark Dwellers I think is the right play. Can't cast both. So it ended up being kind of awkward with the Howled Moonlight. Is that actually better? Because Kolaghan's Command can discard a card and... But the Goblin Dark Dwellers is going to be exiled for forever. So I think we will just have Moonlight. Ooh. We'll play that next turn. So I'll just, right now, just use Kolgan's Command. 2 damage and discard a card. And most likely it'll get negated or something. Unless there's something relevant that it can just throw away. And we'll let the Goblin Dark Dwellers go. So a natural connection goes away. My opponent has something more relevant than a natural connections. There's Anticipate. But we got to cast 3 of the cards off the Commune of Lava, so I think it was worthwhile. Gone through quite a bit of our deck and still no Goggles. We have the Virulent Plague. If we can stick the Virulent Plague, that's going to be huge. Crush can get around it, but Virulent Plague is going to be one of those, because it returns all non-land permanents, I believe. There's a Sanitarium. Let's get rid of a mountain. No, we'll get rid of a Wooded Foothills. There's no point to. And we draw another land. So I don't think that this is the opportune time to try to stick a Virulent Plague. Yes, it is. Because this gets rid of the Rise from the Tides. And so yeah, now my opponent has to be proactive here. See what ends up end of turn. I'm thinking like another Anticipate. Make us both loot. That actually helps me out a lot because it's going to dig me towards finding that Pyromancer's Goggles. So Majoring Network. That's good early. So obviously not the ideal draws for my opponent. Wants to get card advantage through Explosive Agitations and then Piece of the Puzzle. And hopefully hitting a lot of instants and sorceries. You thin out your deck with the early Explosive Agitations and Natural Connections and Nissa's Renewal, which gives you a lot of mana to then chain off like Piece of the Puzzles. And if an activation comes on Lumbering Falls, again, when people see Nahiri, they just panic when it's on 8. Because they're thinking Ulamog, Emrakul, even George Clooney can be tutored up with Nahiri, and all of those are just scary. So I think he's going to ignore Nahiri, which means I'm going to get a Pyromancer's Goggles. This puts my opponent back up to 27, and thins out quite a bit. And there's another Commune of Lava. I could just go for it, other than I'm worried about whatever that is in hand. So we'll play the land. We want to hit land drop still. And we'll go ahead and search. Now I think I do play. If I tap out, am I just leave up Crackling Doom mana? This should be enough. Ten cards. I don't think I can go wrong with 10 cards. And then we leave the Crackling Doom mana up to take care of a Crush token, because my opponent can't go off at the moment. And I wanted to definitely play these cards. Alright, awesome. So we have a lot of different cards we can play next turn. The Pyromancer's Goggle will come back to my hand. And we have an entire turn to play these. So that's the way that we keep up with card advantage with the blue decks. Commune is insanely powerful with Pyromancer's Goggles. It's also really good with Chandra, and we haven't seen Chandra yet. So we'll go ahead. I could just right now Kolaghan's Command, force my opponent. If he anticipates, I might do so at end of turn. Naturalize. I actually don't care about that. So I think the last card may be relevant. And so I think we just go right now to target player discards a card and do 2 damage. And see what that last card in my opponent's hand is. Explosive Vegetation. So it ends up not being very relevant. But the Pyromancer's Goggles dies. And my opponent has to top deck, just really Hail Mary into a card that can get him out of this. The Sanitarium is actually pretty decent at the moment because I have 2 relevant cards. I'll get rid of Nahiri. Just Lumbering Falls. And possibly another activation on Lumbering Falls. So, most likely we will just cast the Goblin Dark Dwellers. Draw into another Vent. We'll use one of our lands that comes into play untapped with the swamp. Out of the cards that I need to use this turn, so Pyromancer's Goggles does allow me to. Yeah, we want the Pyromancer's Goggles for sure. But I do want to keep back the Crackling Doom mana. Well, I think what we do is we just cast the Goblin Dark Dwellers. Rather than these 2. I could have discarded a card. I'm still going to do that play. We're still going to go Kolaghan's Command and have my opponent discard a card and do 2 damage. There's nothing else I can I can return back. And it was a Rise from the Tides, which was being shut down by the Plague. So, ended up getting some decent value out of the Commune. We have 20 cards left in our deck is all. If he activates the Sanitarium, we actually do have a good card to get rid of, which is the Vent. And there's one of our finishers. About time Chandra shows her face. And there's Anticipate, which could lead to a Crush. The best card you can find right now is a Crush. But I'll just recast the Brilliant Plague and then Crackling Doom, most likely. I don't have a lot of ways to interact with my opponent's graveyard, so Rise becomes a very decent threat. And it's going to keep up the mana. So I can go crazy here. I'm going to keep Goblin Dark Dwellers back. So Chandra is, of course, a very, very powerful win con. I could use Chandra to actually get Nahiri here, too. Which, with Goblin Dark Dwellers, how many are in the exile zone? Just 1. So we have 2 more in our deck. So I'm just going to add 2 to my mana pool. Because I think Nahiri is correct. And we're not going to. We'll tick up Nahiri. But we want both the Crackling Dooms. I think they're both very powerful versus what our opponent is going to try to win with. And I don't need to we'd rather keep Chandra alive, so that is the key to keeping Goblin Dark Dwellers back. Here he's going to find us a second Goblin Dark Dwellers. We do have to worry about this, our library getting very empty. So learn from the past, target. Oh, he's going to shuffle mine back in. That's actually, there goes that away. I'm cool with that now. So instead of his own, he's going to have me shuffle my library, which I think that's the only way he wins, is me decking myself. Plus it puts some very relevant cards back in. Well, we discard a Crackling Doom with trips. Elvish Mystic is in the deck too. I think it will help ramp a few cards. Not worried about a Jada offshoot. This is the name of the game here is Chandra. So we're just going to, I mean, I could copy Crackling Doom. Actually doesn't seem terrible. You get sort of a one. Now, I think that we keep them back. I'd rather have these cards. There's a Lightning Strike. I could copy a Lightning Strike, kill both of them. And I think we will exile the top card of our library. We will not cast the Pyromancer's Goggle. And these are all instant speed, so they're all fine. I'll just tick up Nahiri. And then keep back the blockers. Because it's all about Chandra. Chandra is the win con. I'm going to activate the Sanitarium again. Get rid of the Battlefield Forge. Opponent gets rid of the Elvish Mystic. I have a Nahiri that can go grab another Goblin Dark Dwellers. I'll tick up Nahiri one more time though to keep it relevant. And there's the Crush of Tentacles, which actually is okay. It does slow down the Chandra. But since it was only the first card cast, then it just didn't get value. I could go Lightning Strike here, and might as well. I think we kill off the Mystic. Rather than the offshoot, here is just going to establish the cards that we want to be established, which are going to be the Goggles, as well as the Plague. And we'll even play a Advantage for later on. We can get rid of Nahiri just fine. Nahiri is quite irrelevant for the Sanitarium. Not worried about the Jada offshoot. I'd rather have them have less mana, if that makes sense. And Lumbering Falls. If he activates both of them, I feel very, very sad for the Tasty. He's going to hate life here. As it copies. Oh, that is, I think that's the nail in the coffin for the Lumbering Falls. It's just such a versatile card. Absolutely love the Crackling Doom. The key, one of the very, very key cards to running the deck. It gets rid of so many different threats. And it always has to be the strongest card. So there's the concession. And fun little match. I like the idea of the deck. I think there can be some upgrades, definitely going back in the cons block with like cards like Treasure Cruise. But yeah, anyway, we'll try to do some more matchups as time permits. This has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this Frontier match. Make sure to check out Tasty's version of the game by clicking on the link on the left box. That will take you to his channel. Give him a shout out, give him a like, give him a subscribe. Let's build his channel. Thanks for watching.